private investigator in the state of New Hampshire?
31 years?
Have you practiced in other states?
No, I'm only licensed in New Hampshire.
And in that time, how many cases have you worked on, approximately?
Volumes.
More than 100?
Yeah.
Okay. And at some point, you became involved in Owen's case.
Yes.
Do you remember who made the initial contact with you to work on Owen's case?
Attorney Charlie Buttry.
And ultimately, Attorney Carney ended up taking this case to trial. You transferred your work to Attorney Carney, is that correct?
Yes.
And you continued to work with Attorney Carney after you had been contacted by him?
I did.
Okay. Do you recall what, approximately what time or what month you were contacted to start work with Attorney Carney on this matter?
I think it was May of 2015.
May of 2015?
I believe so.
And do you recall who contacted you?
Attorney Danya Fullerton.
And who was Attorney Fullerton?
She worked for Attorney Carney.
Are you aware of whether there was any other legal investigator or any investigator working on this case in New Hampshire?
Not that I know of.
So to your knowledge, you were the only person who was doing investigation at the direction of Attorney Carney and his associates for Owen's case?
Yes.
Were you provided full discovery?
I was.
Do you know when you were provided full discovery?
In July, I think it was July 17th of 2015.
So several months after you had been brought into the case?
After they contacted me, yes.
Is that routine?
Not typically. I typically have discovery right away.
How did you take direction about what to do in this case?
Through Attorney Fullerton, and I conversed as to the direction of the investigation.
So she would contact you with specific tasks that she wanted you to undertake?
Yes.
Is that typically how you would investigate a case?
Yes.
And I want to step back for 1 second. I jumped ahead of myself. When you were provided with discovery, were you provided with the police reports?
Yes.
Were you provided with the captures of the student email accounts?
I do not believe so.
Were you provided with any student emails?
No, I don't believe so.
Were you provided with the CAC interview for Chessie Prout?
This was audio, yes.
Were you provided with the CAC interview from Elizabeth Wells?
No, I don't believe so.
Did you undertake any social media investigation on your own?
I did.
Is that a routine part of your practice?
It is.
And did you provide to Attorney Carney anything that you found that may be of interest in the course of your social media investigation?
Yes.
Do you know if he did anything with those materials?
I don't.
How much of your contact was directly with Attorney Carney?
I didn't have any contact with Attorney Carney until during trial.
Were you part of meetings with Owen and the defense team?
No, those were in Boston. I was not.
Were you invited to attend them?
No.
Would you typically be part of those types of meetings?
Yes.
You ultimately did identify some witnesses for interview, correct?
I did.
And how were those witnesses identified to you?
Well, Danya, Attorney Fullerton, would request that I speak with specific witnesses, individuals, and then through interviewing witnesses, names, information is supplied through the witnesses.
So I want to speak about 4 specific witnesses that you were asked to interview. Do you recall interviewing Isabel Bingham?
I do.
Can you tell me about the interview and the information that you gathered from Ms. Bingham, please?
Well, I spoke with her on the phone. I did not meet with her in person. and she had told me that she was good friends with Lucy Prout. I believe they were roommates at St. Paul's School. She had confided in me that she was present, I believe at a dinner. I want to say it was at Centennial Hotel here in Concord, with a group of girls from her dorm, and Francesca had showed Lucy and all of the girls an email that she had received, a poem from Owen. And Lucy had dated or had a relationship with Owen earlier. I think it was her sophomore year, and a couple of the other girls all had agreed that it probably wouldn't be a good idea if Jessie had responded to Owen, so they responded to the email on Chessie's behalf, declining a visit with Owen or an interaction. And I think Jessie had stated at that time that she wasn't going to see him, and that she wouldn't let Owen come between sisters. They were very close. And Isabel I'm going on my memory here, so Isabel had told me that, unbeknownst to Lucy, that Jessie had decided to meet with Owen after all. And Isabel Bingham had a sister, Serena, who was very good friends with Jessie. And Serena had told Isabel, this gets a little complicated, Serena had told her sister Isabel that Lucy had come back to their dorm and told her that she had met with Owen. I believe that Serena told Isabel that Serena had told Lucy that she needed to tell Lucy that she had met with Owen because it was the right thing to do.
So did Jessie, I think we know at this point, Jessie ultimately told Lucy what had happened.
I believe that she had confided in her.
So did Isabel have any information about how Lucy reacted to that?
She didn't go into details. She just told me that Jessie was fine, and that at some point they were at a I don't know if it was a dinner or a rehearsal or something, because it was at time of graduation, and Isabel looked across the room and saw Lucy and Jessie talking, and Lucy became very emotional. She could see that she was crying, she was upset. So Isabella presumed that Jessie had told her that she had gone to see Owen, and then she said that Lucy appeared to be angry after that.
How did Jessie respond to Lucy's anger?
Your Honor, I'm going to object at this point. This is a rather lengthy dissertation about the interview, and I fail to see the relevance to the ineffective assistance claim at this point.
Your Honor, one of the claims that was raised was the failure to cross-examine and to challenge Ms. Prout's testimony. I can try to move the testimony along, but this goes specifically to information that was available to the defense that was not used, that could have been used to cross-examine Jessie and other witnesses that could have been presented to challenge her testimony. That was not.
This witness can't speak to the reasons why or why not defense counsel chose not to challenge or to use this information.
My question is everything that she's testifying to, I assume this witness, as a competent private investigator, summarized her interview in writing and gave it to Attorney Carney. Are you saying it's not in his file?
I'm saying some of those documents are in his file, and I'm saying that the information was not used. I'm not calling...
I understand that you're claiming that it's not used.
Yes.
But I don't think she has to go through it in detail in open court. If it's summarized in a memo that's in Attorney Carney's file, then Attorney Carney can be asked why he didn't use it or what his judgment was and why. And you can cross-examine him about that.
Okay. Ms. Dixon, you are... you just shook your head a moment ago. You're indicating that this is not in Attorney Carney's file?
Attorney Carney asked me to not write any notes or not to write any reports.
Did you
I was
reports?
only to give oral report to Danya.
Did he ask you to give written reports for anything?
No, I was instructed not to.
You were instructed to not write anything down. So none of your interviews with any of these witnesses are written down anywhere?
Some of my interviews, they were lengthy, so I initially had typed up notes to discuss with Danya, and I believe I had emailed her some, and at some point she said, I spoke with Attorney Carney, and he wants to return to our original protocol of do not write any notes, do not type up any reports.
Okay. Judge, may I continue to explore this point then?
To the extent that you lay the foundation that this was communicated to defense counsel.
Sure. So, Ms. Dixon, I think you just stated, but we'll clarify for the record, that when you received instruction from Attorney Carney, it came through Attorney Fullerton.
Correct.
And when you had product to report back, you reported back to Attorney Fullerton.
Correct.
Do you have any information that information?
Well,
you have...
that's good enough. I
Okay.
just
Thank you, Judge. That's fine. Thank you. I'm going to bring you. I'm going to bring you in a little bit on the Isabel Bingham matter. I think what you said before Attorney Ruffle objected was that there was a dinner at the Centennial that Ms. Bingham observed Lucy to be angry and upset.
Yes.
And did she see Chessie respond at all to Lucy's anger or upset?
Okay, the Centennials, when the email was, when Chessie had shown everyone the email, they were having a dinner at the school.
Oh, okay.
So this is the following day, or I'm not sure if it was the following day, soon thereafter, that Lucy was upset, and Chessie tried to, make light of it, according to what Isabel told me. This went on for a couple of days, and then there was I don't know if it was a flagpole event. There's a lot of events over at St. Paul's during the graduation. I think it was a flagpole event, and they were having, I don't know if it was a luncheon or a dinner, but Chessie was trying to, ease the relationship with her sister, and Lucy didn't want to talk to her, so Isabel said that she observed Chessie to jump on Lucy's back and try to, horse around and make light of it. And she had made a comment that Isabel had heard her say that her breasts, her boobs still hurt from being with Owen. And Lucy became very angry. And the following day at graduation, she punched Owen in the face.
Who punched Owen in the face?
Isabel said the following day at graduation, Lucy saw Owen and walked up and punched him in the face.
So to be clear, because I was confused.
I'm sorry.
No.
It's a lot of
information. I apologize. So at the Centennial, that was when the girls got together and sent the decline email to Owen. Is that accurate?
Yes. Chessie had showed the poem that she received, and the girl said, "You shouldn't meet with him." And we're gonna. All the girls got together and responded to the email for Chessie and said no, a decline.
Was Lucy part of that?
Yes.
And then at some point later, there was another dinner when Isabel observed Lucy to be upset, and she observed Chessie trying to placate or engage her sister. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
And then the flagpole ceremony, or whatever ceremony that was, happened at some point after that. And that was when Chessie jumped on Lucy's back and made the comment about her boobs being sore.
Yes.
To your knowledge, did all of those incidents happen over that same graduation weekend?
Yes.
And to your knowledge, and I think you stated this, I just want to be clear, Isabel believes that Lucy was told that Chessie had met with Owen?
Yes. Well, they were roommates too, so.
Lucy and Isabel were roommates?
Yes.
Did Isabel give you any information about how Chessie appeared after her meeting with Owen?
Serena, Isabel's sister, told Isabel that Chessie was fine and that she had confided in her, and Serena suggested she call her sister.
Call her sister to make sure that she was aware of what had happened?
Just to let her know that she did see Owen so that she heard it from her, because she thought it was the right thing to do.
You also spoke with Val Riverist.
I did.
Was Val part of that group of girls at the Centennial or the group of girls at the subsequent dinner?
Yes.
Did she report information similar to that was reported by Isabel?
Val stated that she had been at the Centennial when Chessie had brought out an email, a poem that she had received from Owen, and that they all thought it was, it would be weird for her to meet Owen because Lucy had dated him or seen him throughout her time at St. Paul's. And so they all responded to the email together as a group of girls and declined in a funny kind of way. It was nothing harsh.
So Val basically corroborated the information that Isabel had.
Yes.
Did Val have any information specifically about how Chessie appeared after meeting with Owen? If you recall.
I think that she asked her how she was, and she said she was fine when she heard about it. But I believe Val heard about it through Lucy.
Heard about what through Lucy?
That Chessie had met with Owen after they had sent the decline, and excuse me, she said that she wasn't going to meet him.
Did Val have any additional information that may have been valuable or useful, potentially useful to the defense?
I guess before she responds and she's thinking about it, I am going to object, and I'm going to object for two reasons, Your Honor. Number one, it would be...
I'll sustain the objection. The question is, what else did Val tell her that was communicated to the defense, not her assessment of what would or wouldn't be useful?
I just would also like to express my concern at this point that this witness's testimony is going beyond the statement or offer of proof that was provided to the state in regard to what she would testify to. So this is completely blindsiding the site. We have no information about this, and I have no idea what further testimony she may be offering that we don't know about in advance.
Judge, the extent of the information that was going to come in through Attorney Dixon was not clear until the cross of Attorney Rancourt was completed. On impeachment, I am not required to provide information to the extent that it's not.
This is a witness that this is not impeachment.
I understand, Judge, but
Sustained.
Did you provide information to Attorney Carney about anything else that Val had said?
Yes.
And what was that?
That she felt that Chessie had regretted being with Owen and had gone to the counselor after her sister became upset.
Were you asked to subpoena any of the witnesses that you interviewed?
Yes.
And did you effect those subpoenas?
None of the witnesses that I just testified to, but other witnesses.
Were there additional witnesses that you, without speaking to the content of the information they provided, were there additional witnesses that you provided information to Attorney Carney about?
Yes.
And did Attorney Carney respond upon learning that information that he wanted any of those witnesses subpoenaed?
Very few.
And of the witnesses that he did ask you to subpoena, were you able to subpoena them?
I was able to subpoena 3 witnesses. One was a student from St. Paul's.
Of the ones that you were not able to subpoena, why were you not able to?
I advised counsel that they were out-of-state subpoenas, so they had to, there's a process in which those subpoenas need to be served. I could not serve them subpoenas.
How long
from
did
New
it
Hampshire.
Take? apologize, from New Hampshire. How long does it take to prepare and execute an out-of-state subpoena, in your experience?
It could take a month. You have to go through the state in which they live in that court.
Had you been given direction earlier to contact these witnesses, would you have potentially have been able to use this information? Or, I'm sorry, would Attorney Carney have potentially been able to get these witnesses subpoenaed for trial?
Potentially.
And was the inability to get them under subpoena a reason that those witnesses were not called as witnesses at trial? To your knowledge, if you know.
Well, Attorney Fullerton and I discussed it, and because we did want to subpoena them. But when I presented the fact that they were out of state and there was a process in which we had to subpoena them, that Attorney Fullerton asked if they would come in on their own to testify on their own without a subpoena, and I said I didn't know. I'd have to contact them. But she was going to speak with Attorney Carney about the out-of-state subpoenas.
And you never heard anything additional?
No.
Were you asked to investigate information about Andrew Thompson?
To investigate information? No.
Were you asked to try to interview Andrew Thompson?
Yes.
And did you attempt to do that?
I did.
And were you successful in doing that?
No. No.
Can you tell me what happened when you attempted to interview him?
Well, I met with Mrs. Hodder and his father, and spoke with them, and they said that they wanted to speak with, Andrew wasn't home at the time, but they wanted to speak with their attorney, and they'd get back to me, or have their attorney get back to me.
Did the attorney get back to you?
No.
Were you asked to follow up on that?
I made a phone call and left a message. I think I followed up with an email maybe as well. I think it was Attorney Rosenberg.
Correct.
Okay. I believe I sent an email, and he called me on July 1st and declined.
Did Attorney Carney ask you to take any follow-up steps after Attorney Rosenberg declined to speak with you?
No.
Okay. And did Attorney Rosenberg decline to speak with you, or did he decline to make Andrew available?
He declined to allow Andrew to be interviewed or available.
Were you asked to investigate or to interview Elizabeth Wells?
I don't have any information regarding Elizabeth. I have her name. I think I know the town that she lives in. I think I through discovery, but I don't believe that I was requested to contact her.
Were you asked to interview Dr. Gettins at St. Paul's?
No.
Were you asked to interview any of the medical staff at St. Paul's?
No.
Were you asked to seek or attempt to obtain any records from St. Paul's?
No.
Were you asked to review any records?
No.
Were you asked to get releases or to attempt to get releases so records could be obtained?
No. Not that I recall, no.
Did Attorney Carney ask you any questions generally about Facebook?
I didn't speak with Attorney Carney.
Did anybody ask you any questions generally about Facebook and how it worked?
Attorney Fullerton and I dialogued about Facebook and what were on witnesses' Facebooks, postings, Twitter.
Were you asked to investigate or find Facebook information about, I think it was referred to in trial as the mean Facebook comment, the photo of Lucy and Chessie?
We discussed it, but there was no follow-up.
There was no follow-up?
No. I think one of the students had posted something.
But you were not asked to pursue that?
I don't believe so.
Were you asked to do any research about the difference between internet and intranet?
No.
Were you asked to provide any documents or any articles or to investigate at all on that issue?
No.
Were you involved with the DNA expert?
No.
Were you part of any meetings with Owen and the defense team?
No.
Were you aware of the theory of the case?
Yes.
Was Attorney Rancourt present at those meetings?
Not that I wasn't there.
Would you have a basis to know that?
unless somebody told me, and I don't recall anyone telling me that she was present.
Are these typically things that you would be asked to do or asked to engage in as an investigator for the case?
Well, typically I'm there for the meetings, and so I would, yes.
Just one moment, Judge.
Yes.
Can you tell me how you became aware of the theory of the case?
Danya and I would discuss the case and the interviews and what we were looking for information from witnesses.
I have nothing further at this point, Attorney Ruffalo or Attorney Stewart May. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
I just have a few questions for you. You said that you have practiced investigation in the state of New Hampshire?
I'm licensed in New Hampshire, yes.
For approximately 31 years?
Yes.
Do you primarily work for defense counsel?
Yes.
Do you ever work for the prosecution?
No, I'm not a police officer.
But have you ever been asked to follow up with investigation for the state or any other law enforcement agency?
No.
In this case, you conducted the investigation as directed, is that correct?
Correct.
And that included conducting interviews of very specific individuals, correct?
A list, yes.
And those interviews were not recorded?
No, I don't record interviews, ma'am.
You never record your interviews?
No. I'd have to transcribe them.
And
Yeah.
you didn't obtain sworn statements from any of the individuals that you interviewed?
No, I was not asked to obtain sworn statements.
Were you aware that the state had requested reciprocal discovery in this case? In other words, if you had provided reports, those would have been provided to the state in discovery?
Yeah, I know what it is, and I presume that that was the case, yes.
It's my understanding, and please correct me if I'm mistaken, but you're not an attorney, is that correct?
No, ma'am, I am not.
Okay. And you stated that you were aware of defense counsel's trial strategy through your conversations with Attorney Fullerton.
Yes.
But is it correct that you were not asked to consult regarding their trial strategy?
No, I was not.
Were you aware if the defendant had limited resources to expend in the preparation of his trial?
I believe he was limited.
And is it possible that the decisions regarding investigation were made in an effort to use the defendant's limited resources most effectively?
Of course, that's possible.
You stated that you had also done some investigation in this case at the request of Attorney Buttry. Is that correct?
It is.
And Attorney Buttry actually never filed an appearance in this case. Is that correct?
I don't know.
He represented the defendant prior to ever being charged criminally.
That I
correct?
believe, yes, I believe that is correct.
And are you aware that following Attorney Buttry's representation, that Attorney James Moyer represented the defendant in this case?
After, yes.
And did Attorney Moyer ever ask you to conduct any investigation?
No, I don't believe so.
Are you aware that following Attorney Moyer's representation, the defendant was then represented by Attorney Michael Ramsdell?
Yes.
And during Attorney Ramsdell's representation, did he ever ask you to conduct any further investigation?
No, he did not.
So at least at the request of 2 attorneys out of 4, you were requested to do some investigation.
Yes, I was retained by 2 attorneys
Retained.
out of the 4.
You can't speak to the defense strategies or decisions about how that information might have been used at trial. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay.
Ms. Dixon, are you aware of how long Attorney Moyer represented him?
I'm going to say 6 months, maybe. I'm not sure how long.
Were you retained by Attorney Moyer?
No,
Do you know
Well-
if he had an investigator working with him?
he didn't. We spoke, and I think we exchanged emails.
But you
Jim
were-
and I did.
But you were never retained to work with Attorney Moyer?
No,
Were you retained to work as an investigator by Attorney Ramsdell?
no,
Do you just go about the state and do work for attorneys if you're not retained?
no.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
You may step down.
Thank you.
I think it's an appropriate time to break for lunch.
Judge, may we excuse the witness I have if the state is in agreement?
That's fine.
Yes.
Thank you, Judge.
So we will break for lunch. We'll resume in an hour at 1:20.
Thank you, Judge.
All right.